Hi, this is Module 4 Special Education Interviews. I'm Kyle Westerman for EDL 853. First question, what are our child find procedures, including what cooperative uses, public tools, awareness? The special education teacher that I communicated with was a deaf and hard of hearing teacher in the district, and they have sit team meetings where they do tier work for the student. They see if there's an academic issue with his or her hard of hearing or deafness, and if there's no progress, then they do create the IEP process. And talking with my principal, they do public notices and screenings with the newspaper, social media, and then the flyers. They communicate with families as much as possible, and they also try to enter in at a very young age so that they know in that pre-K stage if there is a need for the special education for that student. And with the paraprofessional, they talked about how close interaction and guided teaching with students, again at an early age, and they listen to behaviors and patterns and what kids are struggling with and where they need help. What do you find the most challenging part of the role with regards to special education and why? By talking with a special education teacher, again with the specialized kind of niche that the special education teacher was in with deaf and hard of hearing, she stated that the lack of knowledge that teachers have is sometimes the hardest thing to get over. Teachers sometimes don't want to use the technology that the deaf, hard of hearing teacher wants them to use, and so combating with those teachers on how to make sure that they use the technology that is available is probably the most challenging part for her. With the principal, she talked about maintaining adequate communication procedures. Again, the changes in regulations like we read in the dissertation, and there's so much paperwork that goes along with the special education department and regulations and rules and stuff like that, and then updates with the families and children, making sure all parties are on the same page. With the paraprofessional, she stated that the most challenging part was just time and not having as much time as they probably needed with the student to teach them in the specific ways that they need to learn. The most rewarding part of their job, all of them kind of mentioned the fact that there's this aha moment that most teachers understand, and when a student finally grasps the concept that you've been working so hard to get a hold of, then that moment right there is when it makes teaching worthwhile. And it's the same thing in special education, no matter what you're doing. What advice do you have on supervision of special education staff, including para? The special education teacher stated that she needs to make sure that the teachers are staying on top of the paras, that she needs to stay on top of her paras as well, making sure that they are being proactive and working with the students and not working with the students against the teacher or not working against the students themselves. The principal stated that they don't usually have all the training and knowledge that they need to work with a student, and so that makes it difficult when you don't know exactly how to handle every situation. Special education is such a wide range of issues or problems, and so it's hard to educate everybody on every single one of the possibilities that could be there. And the paraprofessional talked about how your paras need breaks to make sure that they can recoup from a long day. They're working with students that sometimes have extreme behavior issues, and you're on constant high alert all the time, and so those paras definitely need a break to recharge. How do you work effectively with parents of special needs children? All of them again said communication is the key, and that making sure that the parents are heard when they're discussing their children and they're not being told what to do all the time. You need to make sure that you listen to the parents to see sometimes they know what works best and sometimes they don't, but making sure that you get their opinion and what they do at home. How do you work with regular ed teachers with students with special needs? Again, All of them talked about communication. The principal talked about how they have an open door policy to work on concerns or to call an IEP team meeting when things need adjusted. And the para talked about how it is their job to advocate for the students. What advice do you have for a first-year administrator? All of them talked about how making sure that you take time and listen to everybody. You have to stay strict and have a set of rules and expectations, but also have that understanding heart for that special education department. The principal, I thought, had a great line about how making big changes in your first year is often a recipe for failure. And so you want to make sure that you kind of take what the last principal did, and if there's some little tweaks that need to be done, do it. But any major changes can end up in failure. Para talked about how each child is different, communication, and show how you feel about the special education department by showing by example. How do you describe the role of special education teacher and the building principal? Again, when it comes to any department, we've said this multiple times, but communication is key. The principal should be at all IEP meetings, this, according to special education teacher. Principal said the same thing as well, especially because the teachers cannot promise any services that requires the spending of money without administrative approval. And this is like transportation, new services such as hearing aids or a mic or anything like that that would include money coming out of the school district pocket. The teacher cannot promise any of those services without administrative approval. So communication with between those two is key. What characteristics do you seek in aspiring administrators with regards to special education? All of them really kind of said the same thing, as well as being willing to ask questions and a willingness to learn. If they don't have a high knowledge, then they need to admit it and figure it out. Compassion and willingness to work with others. And then the ability to work as a leader and make sure you're leading by example. Thank you.